Are we? Are we live? Are we going? Are we doing the thing? I think we're doing the thing. We're doing the thing. Okay, so today hopefully we get around to finishing this damn boss fight. This is like the 4th stream that I'm doing on it. I don't know if I have my save file set to being next to the boss fight. I'm gonna be real with you. It looks like I do. Also, really quickly, let me change this to audio output on my microphone. Does that work? It's a little quiet, but okay. So, the boss fight AI. That's what we're going to be looking at here today. There's also maybe that can be a little bit more quiet even. There's also some visual glitch in here. Is it gonna play the cutscene now? Okay, so let's remind ourselves. He does like 15 seconds of aggression, and then he should like sit down, right? That's kind of how this is supposed to work, I think. At some point, he sits down, and that's the bug that we ended up with last time. I remember now. Okay. Why does he do that? Because the question isn't even necessarily why does he do that. The question is why does he do it twice? Because it makes sense that he does it once and then resets back to his like normal state and just stands there. We'll worry about that in a moment. But why in the world does he like play that animation a second time? Is what is bothering me above all else. That's definitely the wrong character. Let's. There we go. That's the one we need. The other one was just a mesh. That's not actually a character. So let's open this up, and this is just the quickest way to get to the thing, the behavior tree, and we have this whole ordeal, right? So we're going to fix it up here first, and then we'll worry about the other 2 phases in a moment. Hello, welcome, CJ Drum. I'm interested to see how you get this set up. You and me both. You and me both. So this is basic combat state, which runs for the first 4 to 8 seconds. That felt like it was longer, not gonna lie. We'll worry about that when we come to it. And then we do the passive thing. So it becomes passive, it stops moving, it plays an animation montage, it waits for 10 seconds, and then it plays another montage, which is the stand-up montage, and then it goes back to being aggressive. That's the idea anyway, but it doesn't quite do that. And I have to wonder why. So, first and foremost, let's see the montage. Montage to play is stand-up for both of them. It's been a while since I've looked at this, since the last stream, as a matter of fact. This is skill rate 1. So this is just the... That's not what I wanted to do. So this is just a normal... God damn it, can you just please, for the love of God, let me scrub through the timeline? Thank you very much. What does that notify do again? Disable resting pose or something. Disable rest. Just that's resting to false. That's probably why. this probably needs to be enable resting pose. So let's add notify enable rest and see if that fixes my issue. It might. At least part of the issue. We also have the fact that it then the animation is running twice, which is weird, but the other side of the issue is also that he's supposed to like stay down afterwards instead of playing the animation twice. And you see he kind of just like does this. He's supposed to do that, and then when he stands back up, which he's not going to do right now, I'm going to look at the behavior tree while we do that. Might want to pull the AI. Oh, where did my screen go? There we go. You might want to pull out the AI behavior to watch running. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm doing right now. But when I do that, I only have 2 monitors, so I can only look at either that or the YouTube live page at one time. So I have to cover up the chat whenever I do this, so I try to not do that too much when I'm live streaming. But sometimes, especially working on AI stuff like this, you kind of just need to. Could you please just sit the fuck down? Okay, he does that, and then I think I understand why this... Yeah, okay. I finish execute, but I don't mark it as a success. Meaning that it doesn't play the rest of the sequence. So what it does... this is really stupid. I don't know how I didn't figure this out last time. What it does is it stops movement. It plays my task here, which again, if I double click it, is this. But then when it finishes, it sees this as failing and it goes back to the roots of the behavior tree, which is somewhere around, yeah, there it is. And then it plays the montage again and again and again and again. It never gets to the waiting for 10 seconds node. So this should now only have the animation play once. And then we also want a montage where he stands up, which I'm still thinking I can just make. Oh, that's also probably relevant. Let's make this the sit down montage. And then the stand up montage. Why do I keep double clicking? The stand up montage will then be using disable rest here after all. And this should be at a play rate of -1, so it plays in reverse. It should be able to do that. I don't know. I remember there being some issue with this last time, so I don't exactly remember what happened. But now that we fixed that logic issue, we might get some more answers to the animation related stuff. So let's just run away for a while here. Until he decides to sit the fuck down. Does he stay down? He does not. He does after the second time though. Now the question is, waiting 10 seconds, does he stand up with... Nope, he does not. Fuck me. Okay, I'm going to just watch the behavior tree again and see what happens. It's really confusing. He sits down. He waits. What the actual... How? Wait, no, I'm legitimately confused as to what the fuck just happened. Why did he teleport attack me? He shouldn't even be able to do that at this amount of HP. How and why did he do that? Let's try again. I'm zoomed out a little bit more so I can actually see what's going on. Okay, so he sits down. He does the animation twice. Still, for some reason, we'll figure that out in a moment. I think I have an idea as to why he does it actually. He waits for 10 seconds and then he simply doesn't play the stand-up animation. And I have to imagine that is because play montage is overriding the play rate, I think. I think that is what is happening. So maybe we just put this to a variable. I probably should just make a separate animation for that, to be honest with you. But let's see if we try to set the play rate in the behavior tree here. I'll just show you on screen. If we set that to -1 as well, maybe this will work. I say that, but even if the play rate gets overridden, it should still replay that same animation. So why doesn't it? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Unless it's trying to play on a slot that doesn't exist, but I think they're both just trying to play on default slot, right? Default slot and default slot, yeah. And default slot is at the very end, so the sit down pose is not overriding that either. I'm a little confused, I'm not gonna lie. Also almost fell off my chair. Because why not? Let's see. We'll just do that again. Could there be something wonky happening in the animation blueprint? Possibly. But there's really nothing like much going on here. Like I have this sit down sequence, which is just a 1-frame animation, because I suppose I can just use a pose there as well. But we'll test that in a moment. Actually, we'll test that later. Which then goes into the default slot, which should be playing either the sit down or stand up animation or whatever really, and that just goes into the output. So there's not like. The animation graph itself is stupidly simple for this guy. And I don't think any of the things in here really impact anything at all either. This is to do with his defense stats. This is his damage box for his sword. This is the weapon trail smear frames for his sword. This is when a teleport attack finishes. I don't even think I use that delegate anymore, to be honest with you. I'm not going to remove it because I'm not sure. Then we've got those two notifiers for setting his resting bull to false or true. And then we just have some logic here for setting the play rate for the idle and walking animations. So none of that should really be interfering at all. So I'm going to, after adding that play rate check, which again doesn't make sense if that is the issue, but it's worth a check. I'm going to see what it does now. Also, before we do that, actually, in the sit down montage, does it like play twice for any reason here? Montage sections, no, I thought it might, but it doesn't. Okay, so I'm still confused as to why that runs twice. We'll get back to that. Because there's no real reason that it should. Let's just run around a little bit until you decide to, hey, sit down. Yeah, not entirely sure why it does that twice. But we'll figure it out. 10 seconds. Okay, so the play rate thing did something, but not what I expected it to do. But that might be stand-up montage. Because this notify needs to be on the left side for this. The very end here. Still doesn't explain why he does that animation twice at the start, but one step at a time, we'll finally figure it out at some point, surely. So he does that twice. We expect that at this point. For reasons. And then when he stands back up, he just plays... Okay. At least I understand why he does the teleporting attack. Because that is actually part of this phase. If you run away too far, he teleports toward you, so you can't keep running away from him endlessly. Let's just... somewhere in here we have his sit down animation. Let's duplicate that and call this stand up animation. Thanks. I'm always happy to hear people enjoying the videos, and sometimes maybe the streams. Can I just like scale this the other way, pretty please? So this now becomes the stand-up animation like that. Okay, cool. Let's make a linked animation sequence for that. Put it in the right folder. Every time I do this on stream I complain about this, and I'm not going to stop complaining about this because it's very annoying. Well, I can also see how it could be useful, but it's kind of annoying. When you try to create a linked animation sequence of a sequence player, it tries to put the animation in the same folder as the skeleton, instead of just the last folder that you saved something to. Which, again, I can see why it has upsides for that. I don't like how it does that. This is a boss fight, not just an enemy. That would be the animation sequence. Animation sequences, or even in the same folder that the level sequence is located at. That also would make sense. I don't know. Sit down. Is it this? That's the stand-up. Okay, I didn't give it a proper name. And you know what? For now, let's just keep this alone and create a montage of it, and we'll call this one Night Stand Up. We'll remove the other one in a moment if this actually ends up working. For the notifies, we'll add the disable rest here. And then in the where did I put my behavior tree? There we go. On the other monitor. Minimized. We'll just set this back to 1. Matter of fact, we probably don't need to play a rate in that anymore, but I'm going to keep it because it could actually be useful in the future. A workaround would be to favorite the folder. That's actually genius. That's actually very, very smart. I didn't think about that. I'm gonna try to remember that. That's really really clever. I mean, I guess the reason that it does that is because it assumes that you're going to put the animations in the same folder as the skeleton, because that would be a somewhat sensible folder structure. I like having like my blueprints in a dedicated blueprint folder with a sub-hierarchy and animations with the sub-hierarchy, and it's a little unorthodox the way I organize my folders. I gotta admit that, and I'm not entirely sure if it is a good idea for me to be organizing my folders like this. But it makes sense to me, and I'm working alone, so it doesn't really matter. And I, half of the time, just throw things into the root folder anyway. And then I organize them later. Yeah, that's it's the wrong fucking animation, isn't it? And now it gets stuck like, what the fuck? Well, at least that one worked. Why does it fuck up with this one? It sit down. Huh? I'm confused. What the fuck happened to change this? I didn't do anything to change this, did I? Did I? Apparently I did. Okay, that's standing up. I understand. I understand. What I did is I added the original animation rather than the... Right, that's what happens. Yeah. I duplicated, added the original, and then everything changed based on that. I think that is what happened. So now the duplicate will be the sit down animation. Sure, works for me. Am I actually going to favorite the folder? I could. Again, it's a fantastic idea. Night sit down animation. It's still playing it twice though. So we make a montage, night, sit down, montage. God, that's horribly typed. When it sits down, we run a notify. No, that's the wrong track. We run a notify to say, hey, you're now resting. And we go back into the, yeah, I've got a new asset, I'm aware. Go back into here, and then we just hope that I didn't fuck up. Yeah, actually, it's not that bad. Let's try again. I mean, the organization does work well for me, but as the project scales up, it's gonna do it again. What? What? How? I am so fucking confused right now, you have no idea. The only thing I can imagine happening there... Oh. Yeah, I know what happened. What happened is that this animation is also a linked sequence. And no, that's not what happened. Maybe. Wait, what? We're just gonna try it like this, okay? Like that. I've never really used a pose asset before, so I'm not entirely sure. Source pose was visible but ignored. I think that's fine. Again, I've never really used pose assets. But that's probably why it was running twice to begin with. Well, that's something. Yeah, I think we're getting somewhere. I think we're slowly getting somewhere. I probably need to cache this pose. Can we rename this, please? Idle walk. And then I can reuse it twice, right? So we can say idle walk through the night pose and then just directly in there. I think this might fix things at least a little bit. Exactly, it ran the pose, kind of, and it didn't run it twice. So we are making progress. I just now need to actually have it run the pose. It's not doing the pose. Why is it not doing the pose? Because the pose is a T-pose. That's why. Well, that makes a lot of fucking sense, doesn't it? So, honestly, I probably can still just do this. If I don't have to cache the pose, that makes the whole graph a little bit more tidy, so I would prefer that. And undoubtedly it's also better for like memory usage, but I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. So are you going to actually stay now? No, you're not. Why is that? Okay, now let's try it again with the cache to see if it makes any difference. I'm learning here. I'm learning. Again, haven't really used these kind of pose assets before, so I honestly don't know what the hell I'm doing. Yeah, yeah, it still doesn't do that with the pose. Why not? I have a animation that's just 1 frame long somewhere of him sitting down, I believe. Because that's also the way that I have this guy sitting down, because he has a, yep, this is just 1 frame. Oh no, it is 150 frames long, it just doesn't animate. So let's just use that. Wait, what? Oh, kneel pose, there we go. It feels like a little bit of a hacky way to do it, because these pose assets, I believe, are supposed to be used for like this kind of thing. But I'm not going to waste too much time right now looking into that. If a just static animation does the job, it will do the fucking job, right? Okay, so the blending is a little weird on it. I do wonder why that is. But largely that works as I want it now. I assume the blending is weird because it doesn't always update source posts. I think if it always updates source posts, the blending issue should be fixed up. Okay, no. In which case, oh, I know what the issue is. I realize what the issue is now. It is that the sit-down montage, which is not this one, because I've got 3 sit-down montages at this point. It's really bad. That's the misspelled one, right? It's got a blend out time. So 0.25 seconds in, like right here, it starts blending out, and only right here does it enable the resting pose. So I just set it to not blend out. And the same thing with the standing up montage, which I just realized the quicker way to get to those is just opening up these. The blending out for this should also be 0. Well, no, this one should have some blending out actually. We just need to disable the resting pose a little earlier. And now the sitting down should work. Okay, so he sits the fuck down. There probably should be a little bit more blending because there is that little cut that he does. And he stands up and he chases me again. Okay. Fantastic. Marvelous. Amazing. Perfect. Do we have any other positive words? So I think we just like enable. I hate that it does that. I think if we just blend out like that. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough. It would be nice if it was perfect. But I'm one guy trying desperately not to lose my sanity. The little bob of the hat I think I can just kind of deal with, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, I can deal with that. One thing that I think I should add though, before he starts chasing me again, is we should probably wait like 2 more seconds. We can actually use this as a meter of aggression as well, how quickly he gets back to attacking us, and let's just move this around a little bit. This should be definitely at this point maybe be a sub behavior tree. What's on the agenda today? Just finishing up this boss fight to the point where it works somewhat decently again. I wish I could just like collapse this into one node that I can then reference in different places without making it into a subtree, because making this into a subtree is a little overkill, I would say. But you see now here in the middle state we can say, okay, you get back to attacking a little bit faster after 1.5 seconds. And then let's not delete a comment here. And then in the most aggressive state we can just say, and that's also a reason actually why we probably don't want that to be a subtree, because we have these values here that we actually want to give different values to. I don't know if subtrees support that. They probably do, just like Blackboard values, right? Okay, so now that passive state works on all of these, and of course we also then probably want to change this to like wait for 8 seconds, and then in the most aggressive phase make that like 6.5 to make it a little bit shorter, give the player less opportunity to deal massive amounts of damage. A task would be better. Yeah, it probably would be. It probably would be. There's like nothing much in here that I couldn't combine into one task, I suppose. Yeah. But at this point, I'm not going to bother with that. I made this play montage to be able to reuse it a lot. If I made this into one task, it would then be less reusable, but easier to like reuse within this behavior tree, which I guess generally is the better thing anyway. Okay. I suppose now we get to just trying again to see if anything goes wrong. Those parameters, yeah, no, that makes sense. But then I have a task that does specifically like one animation, waiting, one animation, and then standing back up and setting the like aggressiveness of the boss fight to being aggressive again. Okay, this might be way too long of a time period. Yeah, I think maybe that's a little too long. Also, probably need him to be generally... actually, no, he's plenty aggressive. Like, this definitely... If you are being overly aggressive against him, you're gonna have a bad time, I think. And it's okay if you can do a little bit of damage during his aggressive phase, right? If you want to get all up in there and still haven't fixed that bug, and deal a little bit of damage at the risk of your own health, you definitely should be... Okay, let's run the fuck away again. I thought I'd fixed that issue where he... Yeah, okay, I did. Maybe. Sometimes when he tries to teleport, he does like a line trace, and he gets stuck on the middle platform there. Hey, aren't you supposed to sit down? Thank you. Boy, why are you sitting down twice in a row? No, seriously, why are you sitting down twice in a row? I mean, you're attacking me now, aren't you? Yeah, no, I don't remember if I changed what I wanted to change yet. But what he does, what he used to do anyway, is do a capsule trace with like the size of his own collision capsule from himself to the player, or a random point around the player, like 50 units away or something like that. And if he hits anything, he just teleports to that location. But that ended up with the issue where if this platform is between us, he just gets stuck on there. I think I already updated this, but I should check in a moment, where he now does a capsule trace from the player to the location that he tries to teleport to, and still if that trace hits any collision, it just teleports to the location of that collision instead, because otherwise you have situations where you can teleport out of bounds by accident. But it seemed like he was getting stuck on that ledge again, so let's try to find that gameplay ability and just double check what happened there. And also, there definitely, like, this 10 seconds of sitting down way too long. Like, let's make that like seven, yeah. And then for this one, let's make that 6, and then for the last one, 5. Like, in the end, once this just works, it's not that different having this versus having one task with a couple parameters. Because I still do need to go all over the fucking place trying to find it. I don't think this phase has that attack, actually. Doability. Doability. No, it is heavy attack. Oh, it's this one. Doability teleport attack. Let's find the teleport attack ability. Maybe to get a point around the target instead of tracing from him to his target. So yeah, that is what it should be doing already. It's using the player and the position that the enemy should teleport to as the start and end positions of the trace, instead of using the enemy itself to have the start of that trace happen, if that makes any sense. So let's see, we have a trace in here somewhere. The question is where. It's been a while. Do we? Find teleport location. Okay, that's this, and then we check teleport location, which does nothing, and then we teleport to player. What? Somewhere in here it's supposed to do a trace. It doesn't, which doesn't make sense. Why does he get stuck on that collision if it doesn't even do a trace? Which, again, it should. Make a random vector, normalize it, multiply it by 250. Add that to the actual location and add some z height. It seems like I haven't even implemented any of that yet, which is weird. Oh well, we'll get back to that. What I use is EQS for NPC to find a target point that provide that to the behavior tree that handles teleporting. That could work, yeah. Yeah, because EQS can do line traces, right? So I could just get a random point around the player in a circle, which it just has a built-in function for that, and line trace to that to check if it is valid. But then if that is not valid, what does it do? Does it just not teleport, or does it run the query again until it finds one? Because that is... I did do that manually through a blueprint at some point, and that lagged the ever-living hell out of my game, because I tried to like do that 100 times within like one frame. Which is why where the thing comes in, like it does a line trace and just teleports to whatever, or a capsule trace rather, to whatever resulting location it gets from that, to prevent it rerunning that line trace or capsule trace. Keep saying line trace, I'm not doing any line traces. To prevent doing that trace like 100 times before I find anything useful. What I should realistically do, if I'm going to do that, I just realized that now. Realistically, what I should do is I should, instead of picking a new random location to do that, what are you doing? Dude, what even are you doing? I think I know what happened. He crossed an HP threshold for going into a different section of the fight, and that causes him to redo these, I think. Maybe not. Needs field code to handle that. Yeah. Okay, so what I was saying is what I should probably do if I'm going to do it like that, and I probably won't, but if I'm going to do it like that instead of taking a new random direction, what it should do is it should do a take like a 30-degree rotation and try that one. If that one fails, do a 30-degree rotation and try that one. Specifically 30 degrees because, well, not 30 degrees actually, because 30 goes into 360. So like 25 degrees. Or 35 degrees, whatever. As long as it's not directly divisible by 360. Because if it does an entire circle around and it doesn't find anything, it doesn't start then rechecking the same locations. It has a little bit of an offset to it. So it probably would be best to make it a prime number. But I think like 35 probably would work fine. Yeah, no valid points doesn't teleport, doesn't really work for my attack, because the whole idea is that it needs to teleport toward the player. If it doesn't do that, it just like swings its sword around to nothingness. So the teleport is quite vital. That said though, I'm going to obscure my chat for a moment again while I retry my boss here and see what actually just happened, because I think I have a good idea as to what went wrong there. I think he's actually aggressive enough to the point where I can hardly do 2 attacks in a row, so it's actually pretty good. Which one is he at? Still at over 70. Okay, so now we go absolutely crazy on his ass. Yeah, okay. So what happens? I just checked. What happens is he's in like this state over here. And I know that I'm effectively creating like a state machine in a behavior tree, which is just not a great idea. But that's what we're doing. So shut up. So he's in this state. When he crosses the 70% HP threshold, which should move him to this state. But for some reason, what happens is he moves into this state and then instantly goes into the passive state, while that should not allow him to do that. Also, my scroll was kind of fucked, so don't worry about that. Is there a difference between... No. So it's not like it's going through here and then immediately setting it to passive. That's what I was trying to check there. I suppose once this starts, I don't even want this to ever abort. Now that I think about it. Because what I'm thinking might be happening is that it doesn't run this last one for whatever reason. It might finish this one, and then before moving on to this one, check if this is... No, because this should still be true. But this one isn't. So it never gets to this one to execute that one. So what we're saying here is this also, this one up here should never abort. Like you finish whatever the hell you are doing, and the next loop around is when you then go to this one. So let's set both of these to also never abort. And this one is just the last default state. Okay. But by and large, it probably would save me a lot of headache if I were to use the query system for this. I'll be happy to admit that much, because the query system is very cool, very nice. I should be using it more often. I use it like for 3 enemies at this point, I think, something along those lines. Okay, so now you don't immediately. Okay. I was gonna say, you're keeping your defense at 0 for quite a while there, mate. I'm also going to try to fix the bug where if I get hit, my sword still has the trail. Oh, then we're going to get to see the fucking horrific cutscene that I've made for the end of this boss fight, because, well, we might actually not, because I'm still very much at a decent risk of death here. But this boss fight, gonna be honest with you, has become a fair bit more engaging. Yeah, so for some reason my player model doesn't show in this cutscene, and there's like weird particle effects happen, and this camera angle exists, and yeah, so I don't even know what is happening in this cutscene anymore. I need to remake this cutscene at some point. And this, I don't even know what's happening, dude. It was a pain to make, and at some point it just broke. At some point the animation for that sequence just fucking broke. It didn't look good to begin with, don't get me wrong. It was like some cinematic masterpiece that fell apart. It was like 3 hours, well, like 5 hours of me getting very frustrated with Unreal Engine, trying to animate that thing, and it still looked shit. But like, the player models were there, and it didn't just randomly cut to a shot of just like a texture. It was like an actual cutscene to some extent. Oh, so yeah, I'm falling down into the void. That explains where my player character is. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to fix up that cutscene, but I do need to at some point in the not too distant future. Yeah. Yeah, the cutscene is fantastic. Maybe I should just keep it in the game like that. Just broken as all hell. Maybe it'll be funny. It'll be a very good send-off to the tutorial, right? It's you've just had a simple, albeit maybe a little bit of a janky tutorial, and now here, see the quality of the game. The cutscene straight up just doesn't work. Would be fun. Wouldn't give a very good impression of the game. Or maybe it wouldn't, because the game as a whole is quite janky as all fuck. At this point, hopefully we get around to improving that at some point. But for now, how do we give a little bit more flair to this boss fight? Because I had an idea for one more attack. The issue is that I don't really want to make any more new animations for this guy, because I don't remember how I have him set up, but I do remember it being kind of iffy. But I had one idea for an animation where he turns around like 180 degrees and attacks you that way. Because right now it's very easy to just go behind him over and over and over again and keep attacking him like that. Which is exactly the strategy that I used, because that's what I have personally found to be the most useful. Then again, he does instantly like snap around when he attacks anyway, so I don't even think we necessarily need that, to be honest with you. But his attacks in general probably should be a little more dangerous too. Like maybe he should have a 360 spin around move, so when he attacks you in front, you dash through him, so you're behind him, you're still going to be in danger. Then again, he can also literally just teleport all over the place and chase you with that. In which case, you're just going to be running away anyway. So yeah, and also, again, if you try to run away too much, he just says, hey, you're not fucking going anywhere. Oh, I remember now. I remember now. It wasn't the teleport all over the place attack that did that trace. It was the... I think he only does it in this phase, maybe. Let's see, teleport attack simple. That might be... Yeah, it's this one that does the capsule trace. And it's very messy. Very, very messy. Good luck with your work as well, CJ Drum. So yeah, this is kind of messy, very, very messy. But as you can see, this capsule trace, what it does is it gets the actor's forward vector in the X and the Y. It normalizes that, multiplied by 400, adding it to the current actor location, adding 0 to it for whatever fucking reason, and that is the end point of the line tracer or the capsule tracer, and the start point of the capsule tracer is the player wait, what? Oh, it's just the player character's position with the actor forward vector not multiplied for whatever fucking reason. Okay, so what I did here doesn't make sense. I don't know what I was on when I was making this. So let's walk through this, okay? So what we're doing here apparently is we're getting the player character's location. Oh no, that does make sense. No, that does make sense. So it's the player actor's location plus forward vector, and then it is adding to that or multiplying that forward vector by the radius of the boss's capsule. So it doesn't ever teleport literally inside of the player. It always teleports to a location where it will be not overlapping with the player. That makes sense. That is the start of our line trace, and then the end of the line trace is, as I just showed you, player character forward vector times 400 plus player's location. And at some point, I think I had the half height in the Z here, but I opted not to do that for whatever reason. And that then does that. So this teleport attack should work. It is the other one that is the issue. The one that I showed earlier. Which is, if I am not mistaken, not even in the first phase. Phase number 2. It's this one that is the issue, because this one doesn't check anything at all. But we should be able to just reuse that same code, as messy as it is. So we do find location for teleports, and then we just say, hey, everything that I put in here, we're just going to copy this over. And this probably should be done in a somewhat more clever way. But I don't give a shit. Teleport attack. Find location to teleport. Actually, let's not remove this yet, because this kind of works. Not really, but it kind of works. Let's just move this around here. Paste all that there. The only issue here is that it always will teleport in front of the player. And maybe that's good, actually. I don't know if I want it to be always in front of the player or if I want this to be random for this attack, though. It's a very good question. I think always in front of the player is a little bit more fair. Oh no, something. Ah, that's just a different reference. We can deal with that. Actors to ignore. Wait, what? Oh. Wrong class. Shouldn't be a big... there's quite a lot of stuff going on there. I was gonna say shouldn't be a big deal to replace. Maybe it's not. Yeah, I figured there was gonna be an issue somewhere. Actually, no. It's probably fine. We just need to cast to test night instead. And that compiles. Wow. It should be random because always in front of the player is predictable and easy to cheese. Yeah, maybe. On the other hand, if it is entirely random, like the timing itself is random, I believe. Don't quote me on that. We got to check that. The timing itself is... No, it's not. The timing is not random. So yeah, that's pretty easy to cheese. The only issue with that is if it's not always in front of the player, what can happen is... I'll just like pantomime it out. If I am running in... Can you see my cursor? Yes, you can. If I'm running in this direction and over here it decides to teleport and it teleports behind me, it is facing toward me, but by the time it does the attack, I have continued running in this direction. And the entire attack just has no right to exist. Like, it has no use. I don't even need to, like, actively try to avoid it. It chooses itself. So, whatever the case, what it should always do is at least, like, in the 180 degrees in front of me, it should attack. And always having it just in front of me is the most dangerous, because that does force me to either dash through it at the proper timing. I do think that the timing should probably be random. They're not at the moment. They probably should be. Or it forces me to like turn around at the proper moment and find like another direction to run in. But yeah, I think making the timings random for that reason makes more sense than making the location random. Yeah, the timing should probably be random. So you really have to react, and you can't just like muscle memory your way through it. That is a good point. So teleport attack. Random float in range. Yeah, I could also probably do a 10 to 15 degree arc in front. Let's do 1.5 to 0.2 for the timing here. And then for this timing, we say like 15 to 25. And then this should be probably, let's do this as well. That gives us a random range of all those things together of about half a second between everything landing on the low end and everything and landing on the high end. And that's for every single attack. So I think that's pretty good because it does like 6 of these in a row. So I don't want the randomness to be too large, because if it's like a second and a half of random time, that does increase the length of the attack as a whole potentially by like 6 to 10 seconds. And I do think that about half a second divided into these 3 sections is probably enough for now. Well, we can always adjust this if it ends up being still too predictable. That said, though, I do think that the ability to dash through the enemy and just like chase him that way is probably the biggest issue I have with the fight right now. I don't know what the fuck happened there. Do you teleport attack, please? Pretty please. There could definitely be a little bit more time in between. Still. I do think that increasing the timing of like every section of the attack is probably a good thing. So let's go rigorous. Let's like double all of them. Like 0.2 to 0.4. And then this will be 0.3 to 0.5. And then this will be 0.2 to 0.4. And then what the fuck happened here? Are you doing the distance check for the attack before you attack? That depends on what you mean. If it can cancel itself out if not in range. Yeah, I don't think that really works with this attack, to be honest. Because at that point, the way to avoid it is just to like get lucky and run, and then it just cancels out the attack at some point. Like with the fact that it teleports around, you inherently have to dash or run away. Meaning that the best thing for it to do to hit you is to teleport in front of you. Just due to the nature of the fact that the player... If the player can't chase it because it's teleported away and it's like not on screen at the moment, the player can either stand still or walk into a random direction. If it stands still, none of this matters. If you walk into a random direction, the thing that the boss should do is try to cut off your path into that direction, because of everything that we showed before. Because that will be the most consistent way to hit the player. And the goal is to hit the player at least once. The idea is that you don't hit the player a few times in a row, because this guy deals way too much damage to stun lock players. Oh, it's the actors to ignore. The actors to ignore it still. Why does it teleport to its original location over and over again? I suppose we draw these. Do we have any... I have sweep turned on for set actor location still. That's the issue. I think. Maybe. Let's check whether or not that's the issue. Should probably just enable his attack as like always being allowed. So I don't have to go through the first 30% of his HP bar every single time. Then again, it goes pretty quickly, so it's not that big a deal. But I would really rather you didn't do this. Like, this is not a great thing for you to do right now. Okay, just do your teleport thing, dude. Okay, so the timing of those last ones is actually quite important, because it is the timing of those those particle systems. So those actually is it the last one? Yeah. So this one should remain at what it was, and I think that was 0.2. I think that is correct. Because that is spawning in particle effect number 1, and then particle effect number 2, and then setting the thing back to being visible. And for that to actually look good, the timing does need to be consistent. But the timing between those other things does not have to be consistent. Because that is just teleporting away. Just do the teleport thing, man. Just do the teleport thing. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like that was not 0.2 before, because this feels way too generous still. So was it 0.1? It might have been 0.1. I also need to like, just have some people play this now that this somewhat works again. I kind of want to have the cutscene working again first, but we'll see whether or not I bother with that, because it's the age-old game development issue, right? Is 0.2 seconds feels way too generous when I'm playing it, but that might be actually like the sweet spot, or that might still even be slightly difficult to deal with. Well, just fucking killed me. because I'm so used to his movement, his entire AI at this point, that it's really hard for me to tell when something is difficult. And also it's kind of hard for me to tell at this point if something is engaging or if I'm just like mindlessly mashing through it because I'm so familiar with it. Like, am I in speedrun mode on my own game? And is it just slightly boring because of that? Or is it just actually not an engaging boss fight? I just realized that this previous delay is also supposed to be... a statically timed one. So we just need to set this to a delay of... let's keep the 0.2 on the low end, but like make this 0.65. Why 65? Because I was gonna type 7 and I figured, 7 might be a little bit high. So I want to seem interesting with 0.65. That's kind of all there is to it. I won't lie. That's literally my thought process there. Oh, you're gonna fucking regret doing that at this point. That was not a good idea on your part. Like, that was really not a good idea on your part to do that. So yeah, I definitely should do the line trace at the moment of teleport. And not first check the location. And doing that actually might be more of a use case for him. There's still going to be like 0.2 seconds in between. But all that said, let's just cut this out here. And put that in the find teleport location. And now I'm suddenly very happy that I'm debugging the... or I try to debug. I've just got it fixed now. The sphere trace, or the capsule trace rather. Because it showed me the timing of the line tracer, or the capsule tracer. And that is probably not a great way to do things. And if I hadn't had a visual for that, I probably would have been, why did that reset your defense? Question mark. I'm just gonna ignore that for now. If it does that more often, I'll probably have to look into it. Can you just teleport, please? Actually, I do want to see what teleporting does when I have my lock-on enabled. You have a teleport attack, dude. You can use it. It's okay. I programmed it for you to use it, so please do. There we go. It is a bit more chaotic, I'll give it that. Having the lock-on does give you a little bit of a heads up of him appearing. So maybe it should forcibly lock you off when he does an attack, but I don't know, maybe that's fine. He needs to reach to well, my brain didn't work there for a moment. He needs to reach his target before he does the teleporting branch. Yeah. That's what I figured as well. So this one, but it should allow for aborting low priority. It just doesn't. Because it's doing this, right? It's this one. That he's flowing along. And this is the teleport attack. So why does he not abort the previous action? That's kind of weird. Like these two even abort both, but this really, like, these don't need to abort anything, to be honest with you. I'm a little bit confused as to why this one doesn't abort the chasing. I'm going to cover up my chat again for a moment here, as I monitor the behavior tree while we're playing. And for that, I do need to set you to... Yeah, there we go. So you sit the fuck down so I can hack away at you. The intended way to fight this boss. And, okay, that is a little bit of a cheese. Okay, you do your teleport attack, that's fine. Okay, chase me. No, okay, so never mind. So what is happening is that the time between his teleport attack allowance is just very long. Which is probably a good thing. Probably don't want that to be too short, because it's quite a fuck you type of attack. And in his last phase, under 30% HP, that time does become relatively slower, and I just died again. So I do think that the fight might be a tad bit difficult, if I'm being honest. But that might also be because his damage is just simply a little too high. And I do think that his HP might just be too low as well. If I take a little bit of his damage away and I increase his HP by a significant amount, I think that will balance out the fight a little bit better. So let's take a look at his attributes. So his starting health is 200. Let's double that, shall we? I think doubling is pretty good. And then his max health as well, because I don't have a good implementation for that. Ignore that. He doesn't actually use mana, I don't believe. His max defense seems pretty good, honestly. And then his damage is 20. Let's decrease that to like 12. Not quite halving it, but significantly less. Also, by the time players get here, they'll have had the opportunity to level up a stat or two a little bit. So they'll have a little bit more MP or a little bit more HP, a little bit more defense, or a little bit more attack. That's the last one. Like, they'll probably have 2 levels in one of those stats, or 1 level in up to 3 of those stats, if my math is correct. I think, maybe, with how the numbers are right now. Yeah, the cooldown for that attack is 20 seconds. And if there's one thing I've learned designing this boss fight, is that a second, and I know this, right? I'm a video editor. I know that the perception of a second is really weird. Not to go on a whole tangent here, but when people ask me to cut off a second of a video because things feel like a little bit too long, or like add a second to a cut in a video because things feel a little bit too quick, usually when you actually add or remove a second, people are like, no, that's not good. No, I don't like that. When people say, add a second to this cut to make it seem less like overly quick and fast, what they really mean usually is about like a fifth to a quarter of a second. I know this. I deal with this on a near daily basis, right? But doing this boss fight has made me realize that that perception of time, while I have a pretty good feel for that, like in a video editing timeline, because like over a decade of looking at video editing timelines will do that to you. That perception of time in like a gameplay scenario is also very skewed, because what feels like 20 seconds, or rather these 20 seconds of cooldown feels like a minute and a half. It's not. It's 20 seconds. Like, I do trust that Unreal keeps track of 20 fucking seconds properly. I don't think that it's an issue with the engine. I think it's an issue with my perception of what 20 seconds feels like when you're in the middle of a boss fight. So that all to say is that I'm going to lower this to 15 seconds. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to lower this to 10 seconds. Because a lot of gameplay can happen within 10 seconds, apparently. The same way, at the start of the stream, we had this wait here being 10 seconds. Way too long. 7 seconds, a lot more reasonable. This, waiting for 2 seconds, fuck that, no. We're going to decrease that to 1 second because it feels really slow and sluggish otherwise. So this is going to be 0.7 seconds. And then in the most aggressive, we're going to lower that to 0.5 seconds. Perception of time is a weird fucking thing. And I keep being amazed by how actually weird time perception can be. Okay, so I did actually end up going on a whole tangent there. I'm very sorry about that. Let's try again. So he's got more HP, deals less damage now. That's what we changed. And he immediately hits me in the face. So yeah, you can see that our normal 1 HP attacks are now actually slivers of his HP bar. And even when we're doing proper attacks, like it takes a little bit of finagling about now to actually get through his easy phase. He should be out of that easy phase now though. Okay, he sits down. But I do think that his defense bar, the blue bar, that protects his HP bar from damage, is about the right amount of defense. And I feel like this is also slightly more. Let's try to not get hit too much. Yeah, I think doubling his HP probably was a good idea. Like, this is a boss fight. It should feel like you... He should be able to go through an entire, like, rotation of each of his phases before you can smack him into the HP range for the next phase. Also, he did teleport inside the floor. Yes, I am aware. Yeah, maybe... Hey, how about you sit the fuck back down? So I can actually heal myself for a bit. That would be fun. No. That's not what I asked you to do. That's pretty much the opposite of what I asked you to do. I told you to sit the fuck down, so please do. Does your sitting down not work in this, or... Again, time perception. It feels like thank you. Give me a little bit of opportunity to heal up. Thanks. Do I have MP enough for my special attack? I don't think I do. Okay, he's going to be stuck on the floor. I do think that this is... Like, I'm actually having a decently, like, tough time, which probably means he's too difficult. But I am having fun. So... You know what? That wasn't half bad. But holy hell, that did take a long time before he actually sat the fuck down. Which again, time perception. It's the one thing that I'll probably never shut up. Yeah, you see? So in the first phase, his range is between 4 and 8 seconds of aggressiveness before he decides to, hey, I'm going to take a break. In phase 2, that is 40 to 50 seconds. That's way too long. So let's set that interval to like, it can be twice as much, like 15 to 25 is fine. And then here it's 55 to 65 seconds. So let's lower this to like 40. So now we have about 10 seconds, about 20 seconds, and about 40 seconds of aggressiveness. That seems fine. Like the last bit here being very, very aggressive, probably not a bad thing, but especially that middle part, like that took a minute of just running around before he decided to sit down. That was too long. Burrows, this is awesome. Thanks. I hope that it will also actually end up being awesome once it's finished and people are playing it. A lot of hard work gone into this, I'll tell you that much. You know what the best thing is? Once this boss fight is actually like in the books, I am pretty much right away going to be moving into the next boss fight. I need to start modeling that thing. I don't have a model for it yet. It's kind of important to have a model first. But I'm a little bit worried because I do want to give him a cape. And I had a different enemy that I was planning on giving a cape to as well. And for that enemy, that ended up being a nightmare. And for what I plan to do with this one, like the modeling process is going to be a lot more intricate because it's going to be a boss fight. It needs to be like a little bit more detailed, a little bit more imposing than the random enemy that I gave a cape to. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. I'm also planning on sculpting... sculpting this one entirely in ZBrush for the first full model of the game. Well, the first animated model of the game. Because we... Thank you for sitting down when you did. Because we do already have like the skull, which you might have seen in a community post at some point. That skull I made entirely in ZBrush, and I'm actually quite happy with the resulting model. I didn't manually retopo. I just used Dynamesh. Not Dynamesh. What's that one program called? Instant Mesh. That's it. God, I love global illumination. You can see the particle systems of me healing reflected in his armor. It's fucking awesome. You know what? I need to make him easier. I know that I'm not going like full focus attention on this. I'm doing like the Let's Play thing, right? Where I'm talking and I'm... and I'm playing at the same time. Which does make things more difficult to play. We all know this, right? At least I do. But also realize that I've done this boss fight probably 150, a little bit more maybe, times. And this is the tutorial boss of the game as well. So if I'm still struggling and having trouble, like at all, after having this boss fight so ingrained in my memory. I know all of his moves. I know roughly when he's going to do what and how things work. I've done it a billion times. If I'm having this much trouble with it, fresh players are going to absolutely lose their shit against this guy. So he probably should be a little bit easier. The question is, how do I make him easier? Creating a very simple shooter in Unreal 5 to learn things. Some of your content helped me understand some things. Clarity of what's going on. Very happy to hear. Very happy to hear. That's what I make it for. To help people out who are just getting started. Or in some cases, people who maybe have been going for a while as well. But for the most part, content is beginner orientated. So I'm always happy to hear when it's reaching the people that it should. Now, how do I make this guy easier without making him less engaging? Because it should still be fun and engaging to fight him, right? It shouldn't be boring, which was the issue with what the AI was like a month ago. When I started reworking his AI, he was just boring to fight. At this point, I don't think he's boring anymore, but I do think that I've gone a little bit overboard. You can change the teleport interval so he's not teleporting as fast. That's probably a good idea. It's specifically that teleporting attack that throws me off. So what I think, you have a really good idea there. This is the teleport attack simple. Don't need that one anymore. It's the big teleport attack. So what we should probably do is we should rework this a little bit. So right now he takes between 0.2 and 0.65 seconds to find a new location and do his whole thing. Maybe that should be 0.4 to like 1.2 seconds. Give the player a little bit more breathing room after he's dodged one attack before the next one just pops up in his face. And maybe a little bit more reaction time as well. I know for testing purposes you should always do only one variable at a time. This is the appearing particles. So if we set that one to like a quarter second instead. And then this one, it doesn't matter that much. This can be pretty much the same. And then set hidden false. And then what we do need to do is when we call next attack, we do need to... How does this work again? Okay, so bind to next attack. Attack 1. After the montage finishes, we find teleport location. And when we do the find teleport location, we have to set him to being hidden right away again. Otherwise, he just stands around and doesn't do anything. And that's not really something we want. We do want him to like pop out of nowhere, swing, disappear. Then have some suspense of when he's going to be popping up again. Pop up, swing, disappear. We don't want pop up, swing, just stand around for a second, then disappear. So that's why I needed to add that to there. Let's try what this feels like. To be honest, part of the things that I might have thought about changing is making those swings a little bit more aimed at the player rather than just 3 predefined animations, like using IK, inverse kinematics kind of stuff. But honestly, I do think that just having those three predefined, wow, that's a tongue twister and a half, animations is honestly kind of fine, even though one of them is consistently missing me. I think it's probably okay. Okay, let's see the teleport attack. That was the wrong teleport attack. That's again the wrong teleport attack. Could you please do the proper one? I would very much like you to... Are you not be... you need to be under 60%. I don't... Are you? You've got to be under 60% at this point, right? Like at this point you're at 50%, so you should be able to do the teleport attack. And you probably pretty immediately will. Oh. I did miss one important issue. And that is the disappearing particles also need to move, not only the actual disappearing bits. So vanishing particles. And we don't need to set hidden here anymore either. Hold on. I'm going to copy over a handful of nodes at once. I think that makes a bit more sense. Copy that over, copy that over. Okay. All that is going to go... where did I put it again? Somewhere around here? Yeah. God, this is a mess. I need to clean up this blueprint at some point in the future. And the not too distant future. Because if I wait too long, I'll have forgotten what half this shit does and I need to relearn it. Or reread it, rather. And that's never ideal. Okay, let's do it again. Need comments. Yeah, it needs a lot of things. A lot of rerouting notes, comments. Just generally, like, cleanup is needed. I'm pretty bad at doing that as I work. Even in, like, C++ code, I'm a little bit better at commenting. And obviously, you don't have, like, the spatial aspect of it, where you need to lay nodes out in a neat way so they don't overlap, and you don't have the, like, visual spaghetti. So that's nice. But even then, the location of where you have, like, a function in your file needs to also still make a certain amount of sense. And that I'm also pretty bad at. I tend to, like, every so often just go through my bigger classes and just say, okay, let's reorder the positions of everything in here. So when I actually want to look through, I can find stuff. I don't think he actually did a swing there. And he's just kind of standing there. Menacingly. Now really, you are just kind of standing there. Like, what? What are you doing? He's trying to play a montage, but he's not playing the montage. Probably because the montage got interrupted, I have to imagine. So, we just need to add a finish execute for failure if the montage gets interrupted. Yeah, I'm using gameplay ability system for this. I actually, in the first place, I did it because I made a video about this recently. Because I had a I had a bug where I was using my first system was a very rough version of this, which I custom made and was very hard coded in a lot of ways. Then I had a second system, which I actually like worked out. The first system didn't survive for very long. I believe I even made that inside Unity when the game was still in Unity before I switched the entire project over, which was a lot of fun. No, it wasn't. It was a good choice. Don't get me wrong. This originally started as a project that I wanted to just do to try to like learn Unity with, and then it grew into a project that I actually wanted to develop, and it outgrew my want and desire to use Unity at all. Not entirely fair. If I ever make something 2D, chances are I'm going to install Unity for it. But that aside, so I poured everything back over to Unreal and remade that system in a more solid way, and it was a data asset based system, which had data assets which hold pretty much all the information that my current gameplay abilities hold as classes. It just had some issue loading those things in quickly enough. So sometimes when you try to attack, it tried to read data from an asset that wasn't loaded into memory yet, and it would crash the game. And I figured, okay, so now I can rewrite a major part of the data asset aspect of this system, but I'd also learned about the gameplay ability system in the meantime. And I figured, okay, I'm just going to set this all aside for like a couple of weeks and learn this plugin and rewrite everything to work with that. And I'm very happy with it, because not even specifically to fix that issue, because I could have very easily probably fixed that issue by just loading those, like preloading those and putting them into memory and just having references to those loaded assets. Probably wouldn't have been that big a deal to fix. But specifically for enemy abilities, this has been absolutely amazing. Being able to program those like boss abilities and those more complex abilities. I'll show you the player teleport version in a moment. But the like teleport attack like this, just being able to program that in its own class as like a script that executes is fucking amazing. I really, really like it. So it's not even as much for about the player for me as it is about all of the enemy attacks. But the player also has a variation on that same attack, as you can see, which uses a lot of the same code. And every single weapon you unlock throughout the game will have its own special ability, which for a lot of them having the gameplay ability system where I can just script out what happens linearly with waiting for an extra input or whatever whenever I need them, that kind of stuff will be very, very useful to have. So I'm very happy that I changed over to the gameplay ability system. Is this being built for single player? Yeah, it's not multiplayer compatible, and it's not going to be. Because multiplayer is a pain in the ass. And my entire code base at the moment does not work with multiplayer, like, at all. It would be a nightmare for local multiplayer, because I use things like get player character and I just index 0 quite a lot. And I would have to go through my entire code, and every single time I get player character or get player controller, I would need to update my code to reference which input, like which controller is calling that. And that would be a lot of work, because I don't necessarily like have a list of every single instance of where I call that function for obvious reasons. So I would probably have to like read through all my code, and even then I would very likely miss a couple of instances of it, which would then eventually break multiplayer for local multiplayer. And for online multiplayer, that's even like worse, because none of this stuff. We're gonna ignore that happened, okay? Can we agree on that? The gameplay ability system is very good for replicating a lot of stuff for you, and like a lot of stuff predicting stuff for you for online multiplayer. So it's really good for that, but I don't really care. And I'm going to actually, there's an error there, we're going to ignore that. It's always a good idea. I'm going to turn off the debug drawing here before I forget. I'm a little all over the place today, aren't I? I'm sorry if I come across as slightly chaotic, but to be fair, that is probably because I am. As I'm wrapping my head around how to implement the abilities themselves. The abilities themselves, at least for me, weren't actually a major issue, because the abilities themselves are, for the most part, just, if I can find it, it's just activate ability, and then if the ability has a cost associated with it, you commit ability. And this then automatically checks whether or not the resource that is attached to this ability is available. So let's say that this ability would cost 100 MP. It automatically checks, hey, do we even have 100 MP in our attributes? Yes or no? If it doesn't, it just immediately ends the ability. And if it does, it subtracts that and then goes on with the ability. For this instance, we don't do that. But for like a lot of player abilities and stuff, I do that. And then you just kind of like linearly in Blueprint. You can also do this in C++, but the whole gameplay ability system is built for using this in Blueprint. You just script this out as a linear ability. So you just start at the activate ability, and then you just do whatever you need to do. You have these wait task nodes. So this this just stops the flow and says, hey, wait until we get this event tag, and that is a little bit annoying to wrap your head around. I've got videos on that stuff. If they're not up yet, they'll be up in the next couple of weeks. But we're quite far into the course at this point, as far as uploading goes. Then the stop pin just instantly keeps executing, and this bottom pin only executes once this event is received. And the same thing goes for things like play montage and wait, right? We input that, and then it only executes whatever is next after the, in my case, montage is completed, and so on and so forth. And there's a whole bunch of these tasks that you can do. You can program your own ones. It's a little bit more complicated. But for the most part, you don't even really need to. There's a lot of pre-made tasks that you can use. And then when you have finished everything to do with your ability, at some point you have the end ability, which just ends the ability. And then on end ability, I think it's called. On ability end, you can also execute some code that will just execute whenever your ability ends. And you can have multiple endpoints for your ability depending on like branching paths and stuff like that. You can make this very complicated if you want to, which is why it's so amazing that you can contain everything to do with this in a class and just say, hey, this class is to do with that ability. I tried looking up some stuff on the player controller. I haven't seen a lot of info on understanding player controller system for single versus online. The replicating of items makes even the Unreal 5 documentation kind of vague. Unreal documentation sucks. I love this engine, but the documentation is horrendous. It's not a very good time at all. To be fair, I don't think I can help you that much with like replication stuff, because it always fucks me up as well. I try to just avoid that, partly because I also don't care about multiplayer stuff. When I play games for myself, just for entertainment purposes, I'm a single player kind of gamer. I play Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Dark Souls. Palworld, the new hotness, I was like, this better not be a fucking MMO. It has single player. I am happy. I don't like people. Mostly because any multiplayer game, I'm going to just try fighting this again as we talk. Any multiplayer game that I play, I won't put enough time into to get good at, but everybody else playing it will, is the main issue, right? So a lot of multiplayer games for me are just not fun because I will play like an hour or two a week, if that. And I'm playing with or against people who like play 5 hours a day, and that's just not a lot of fun. I would much rather play something I can just enjoy on my own, without having to deal with people who are like very try hard, or having to disappoint people on my team that are very try hard. You know, for this attack, it might actually be better if I just, like, get a top-down perspective or something. It's kind of hard to see the vanishing and appearing particles when you're running, like, into the camera. So what you probably should do is always run... Okay, kind of weird that it allows for that, but sure. Oh, wow. I actually died to that attack. That's a little embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, kind of like giving myself a very, like, big pat on the back here, but the Unreal community online, like, the forums are great. Like, there's a lot of good information on the forums. There's a lot of good people with good content on YouTube that show a lot of very good information on the engine. Like, community made documentation, for lack of a better term, is great for Unreal, which, to be fair, it is even better for Unity because it just has more users. But it's amazing for Unreal as well. And this might be a little bit of a stereotype, but Unity has more users, but it feels like people... Oh man, I hope there's no Unity devs in the chat. If there is, I don't mean you, okay? But it feels like people who get into game development with Unity, it's not like if you use Unity, you fall into this category, but people who fall into the category that I'm about to discuss, generally it's kind of just vibes, right? I have no reason to believe this other than just vibes. But people who just like get into game dev for like a week because it seems interesting and then give up, because there's a lot to it and it's very complex. It feels like those type of people end up using Unity more often than not because Unreal feels more intimidating. And to a certain extent it is. Like, there's a lot of stuff that Unreal just throws at you, which it hopes that at some point you might understand, where Unity is a lot more compartmentalized and stuff like that. So in that regard, it maybe is a little bit more beginner friendly, for sure. But it also means that, yes, while Unreal has a lower amount of users, like it has a smaller user base, it also feels like the users that it does have generally like are more serious and deeper into it than a lot of Unity. Again, if you're using Unity and you're like a full-time dev, or like you're serious about it and stuff like that, I'm not saying that if you're using Unity that you're that, right? That you're like uninterested and untalented and ugly and unlovable, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you just share an engine with people that are. And I feel like those people make their way over to Unreal less often. It's not like we don't have them, it's just that those people seem more attracted to Unity for a variety of reasons. Okay, have I offended enough people yet? I probably should have been looking at chat during that because I feel like I missed a lot of reactions there. I find code logic very messy in my opinion. I might be referring to something that I just entirely skipped over, I'm sorry. I noticed Gorka doesn't have a good practice kind of who I was referring to. I don't even know either of those names, to be honest. Like, Gorka and Ryan Laley. I probably should look them up. I mean, if you're just chatting with one another, please be my guest. I was just going on a random tangent there about Unity people being unlovable gremlins. You do understand that that's like hyperbole and a joke, hopefully. But no, please do chat with each other. That's really good for my engagement. So please do. I really like, aside from like the YouTube metric thing of it being actually just good for my engagement when people talk to each other. Whenever like one of my videos does well and people start helping each other out in the comments, it saves me from having to comment on every question I get, which is nice because these days I do get a decent amount of them. I do try to help out as many people as I can. But it always is nice to see people helping each other. It gives me the warm and fuzzies. And also, the algorithm likes it as well. So, there's two sides to it. It is, me personally likes it from like a human level. Just like person to person. Just humanity at its best. Sometimes people can be nice, right? Just feels good. And then the cold-hearted machine overlords also like it for just metric reasons that make them money. So everybody's happy. Except me, because I keep losing to my own boss fights. At this point, it's probably just because I'm not focusing. On your Unity, I've seen loads of people coming over to Unreal 5. Yeah, especially after that whole deal with the runtime fee. People are like, yeah, okay, you backtracked on that, but for now, right? Like, you're going to try to pull this again in the future, which I don't think they will, at least not in the near future. I do think that they really realized that was a bad idea. But I do see people... Like, there's an influx of people on my content to begin with, seemingly since then. And I have to assume that it's partly because I made some videos on the topic and like the channel just grew as a result of that. But I also partly think it is because there was a lot of new people to Unreal Engine since then. Because a lot of people who worked with Unity are like, huh, Unreal's looking real good right about now. Yeah, don't cast too much. I mean, you're right. You're right. You are right. Don't cast too much if you can avoid it. But I also do think that people... in general, people do tend to over-focus on that a little bit. The same way that if I just open up a thing here, people also tend to over-focus on not using event tick and like doing everything in their power to not do something every frame. And what it seems like to me, and I'm not saying that it's the case with you right now, but what it seems like to me, for instance, for event tick, is as beginners, when like following a course or watching tutorials, people get told not to use event tick because event tick is a very easy roundabout way, well, not roundabout, it's a very easy direct way to put code in that will just work. But it's code that will be executing every fucking frame, right? So it's really bad to do. But then people get it into their minds that they should never ever use event tick. While there's definitely like things that you want to do every frame. If I go into it's my C++ code, and I'm kind of done with this boss fight anyway. So let's just hang out and chat about game development. If I go into my player class in C++, I don't have it in Blueprint. So hopefully this doesn't stress you guys out too much. But I do have stuff in my tech event. Very unorganized, but I have some stuff to do with like ledge grabbing. My update nearby enemies function that checks for enemies that are nearby. It's very well named. Okay, to be fair, this probably shouldn't be an event tick. I'll give you that. That probably could just be something that I activate and deactivate when it's relevant rather than checking it every frame. The movement for when my camera is locked on. That kind of stuff. That is stuff that you want to execute every frame. So it should be in your tick. It's just as easy as that. And with tick, I do feel like that is a very prevalent thing. But I also do think that to a certain extent, people over-focusing on avoiding casting have some layer of that. And I get a lot of comments about both of these things. Because in a lot of tutorials, I just cast because it's easiest and that's not what the tutorial is about. And that's kind of the issue. I am part of the issue there because in almost every tutorial, you see the tutorial maker casting instead of using something like an interface, because then you have to talk about interfaces in the tutorials that are not about interfaces, and it just becomes messy. But the important thing to understand for the most part is that casting, while it does have some computing cost, of course, it's mostly when you add a casting node, and this is why I like C++, because in order to cast, you need to include the header file for that class. And you need to be aware of the fact, okay, I am now including the header for that file, for that class into this file. Meaning that I now, anytime I'm loading in this class, I'm also loading in all of the other classes that I'm including. In blueprints, that kind of just builds up without you being aware of it. And that is where the biggest issue comes in with people overusing casting for the most part. So if you're casting in a place that you are then not referring to from any other place, it's generally pretty fine. The issue comes in when you cast from a character A to character B, and character B also casts to C, D, and E. Because now, anytime character A is loaded in, you load in the information for character A, B, C, D, and E. But if you're casting to a place that then doesn't do any casting of its own, that's generally fine. Unity, I mean Unreal. But again, I don't mean necessarily to say that that is where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from. But it is something that I do see a lot in my comments. People are like, you used the casting, now you should die. Calm down. Number one, in this case, you're probably right. I probably should. But casting is fine as long as you're aware of where you're doing it and what the impact is. So, how many people did I offend with that this time? It's not that it's not so much that it already is a memory. It's just you're inflating the memory for anything that. Yeah, so it's mostly like a like the exponentiality of it is mostly what the problem is. Like if you just have one class that casts to another one, that's fine, as long as that other one doesn't then cast to 5 different things, which all cast to 5 different things, and suddenly one class has hard references to 90% of the classes in your game, meaning that you suddenly need like 32 gigs of memory to run your game, which is not ideal. But I do agree that if you're just learning Unreal through tutorials, for the most part, you're going to think that casting is a catch-all solution for getting information to and from other classes, and it's not. It shouldn't be. Which is why I specifically made that blueprint interface video like a month and a half ago. Like, people, casting, it's fine. Like, don't be anal about it, but you probably should also like use other ways of communicating between classes. So that GE teleportability has gone from 60k to 50 megs. I mean, the teleportability, it does cast to the test night. Does it need to? I mean, I could set up interfaces for a couple of functions that I need. For sure. But the night itself doesn't really cast to too much. I don't think. It's actually a pretty good question. Do I cast to anything in at least a blueprint for it? I don't think I cast anything in the C++ class either. Let's check. It's been a while since I've been in this class, so maybe I am not following my own advice. I'll do you one better. I'm probably not following my own advice because do as I say, not as I do. Where be Night Boss? Okay, Night Boss. Let's see. Do we have any casting in here? I can just check my includes. Yeah, for the most part, this doesn't really have any unnecessary includes because there's no casting done in this. So like that growth of hard references to hard references to hard references in this case isn't there. But I wasn't 100% sure of that when you mentioned it. So that means that I'm not aware enough of this stuff in this case. So however, there's a rule like that you should only optimize when your game is running slow, but I don't think that's a good rule, honestly. While writing the code, you should try to write it with like the end goal in mind. And if you know that what the end goal is going to be and how that's going to impact performance, there's no use in writing sloppy code that you have to rewrite. Like if you know you're going to have to rewrite it in the future anyway, you might as well give it your best to write it in a way that performs well right away. Now, if you don't think about it too much and you eventually end up like, oh, this actually runs like shit, of course, refactoring and rewriting stuff is okay, and we all do it. And if you're talking about like prototyping and stuff like that, that's an entirely different story as well. But if you're like writing code that you intend to be in like the production of your game, you should try to write it the best way you can right away. Again, if we're talking about prototyping, just getting something functional as a proof of concept, don't fucking care. As long as it runs well enough, that's fine. How much is C++ and Blueprint in your projects percentage-wise? 70-30 in favor of C++, I think. Something like that, maybe. Generally, what I do in Blueprint is anything like AI related. So anything for the behavior trees, like setting these values as enum and stuff like that, I do in Blueprint. Anything to do directly with the gameplay ability system, I do in Blueprint, because again, it's kind of the point of the gameplay ability system. And anything to do with animations and also UI, I do in Blueprints. Anything to do with like direct, like just gameplay code, like making the functions that I use in Blueprint, like that vanish function that you've seen me use, which sets actor hidden in game. I actually don't think that I use this anymore. Never mind. This class is a very bad example. But if we look at player, character, I don't know what it's called. Okay, action RPG character. Here, I mean, this is a very long class. It's almost 1,000 lines. Because I haven't removed a lot of commented out code yet, to be fair. But there we have the tick. I'm just going to collapse these functions in so we can go through them a little bit. We've got the constructor, of course. This doesn't do anything anymore. I've got a thing to set and reset time dilation for the individual actor here. When I hit something in my game, you probably can't tell, but when I turn it off and you have it in your hands and you're playing, you definitely will be able to tell. When you hit something for like 0.05 seconds, like a 20th of a second, the time dilation for the player character and the actor that you just hit will go down to like 2% or something like that, just to give a little bit of staggering to that hit to add a little bit more impact. I have actually next week or the week after, I have an entire video coming out about the things that I learned to make combat feel satisfying, and this is one of those points. So I also have a set time dilation. I've got a lot of stuff in begin play. I've got some functions for end jumping. So like all of the code that gets executed for the most part is written in C++, and then some basic scripting of when to execute that code I oftentimes do through Blueprint. Makes the most sense to me that way. I mean, it can be fun to just debate, right, Nate? It's even if in the end you both agree on the same stance and whatever you're debating on, it's good to like think through how and why you think certain things and have to vocalize them to maybe find flaws in your own work process and logic and stuff like that. So if it feels like I'm like digging in a little too much, I'm sorry about that. I have the focus of like a goldfish. So when I see something, I go into it, and then 10 seconds later, usually I veer off and forget it ever happened. But like debating stuff is good. Very, very, very good. Please do keep doing it. My learning has been slow because I've been trying to learn most efficient ways to create things. However, what I'm doing is probably not needed. You know, it's good to strive to learn the most efficient ways of things. But I do think that you're right that it can also inhibit your progress in actually just sitting down and making something. If you're doing something inefficiently and at the end of the day you have a product that just runs fine, that's okay. Like there's no game on the planet that is actually like not janky under the hood. In the Discord today I shared a video from Pirate Software, who talked about how Undertale works under the hood. And apparently, like allegedly, the way the dialogue works in Undertale is just one function. The entire dialogue for the entire game is one function with just a switch statement in it that is like thousands of cases long for which dialogue it needs to display. Like that is bad. That is janky as all hell. But it works, and Undertale is a beloved game, and it doesn't matter. As long as it runs, as long as it works, as long as it's fun, that's all that matters. The moment you run into optimization issues and it doesn't run well, that is when you can start to learn, hey, what did I do wrong and how can I improve this? In the end, we're not making some like server farm program that needs to be optimized like to the end of the earth, because like 1% optimization can mean the difference between being profitable and not profitable on like a server farm, like Bitcoin mining, whatever. We're making a game, and if it works, it works. You can right click and get the profile on the content browser, show your memory profile. That is also something I very often forget. Do you make all the AI in Blueprint or just the behavior tree part? Although it's a big part. I'm a little 50-50 on it. The issue is I try not to use behavior tree blueprint tasks and decorators and stuff, because they actually, from what I understand, are less efficient. The engine itself warns you about that. So I do believe it. But then again, the setup for doing it in C++ is just a little bit bothersome, and just being able to just do it in Blueprint, it's easy with debugging. It's easier. So I try to do it in C++, but I don't always. Like if I'm just in the flow of things, I want to just move on. I don't want to have to make the proper function with the proper signature, which I don't have to look up or get from another class, and it's bothersome. It's annoying. The blueprint version, it's just like, okay, you have an event or a function that you can just override and go. It's not optimal, but that gets back to what I was just talking about. Like, does it impact the actual end product for the player? Probably not. So, I use C++ where it feels faster for me to be able to code large bits of code. For small bits of code, I tend to go with Blueprint. I think that is actually better than saying like gameplay systems and like simple scripting is how I usually say it. I think it's more so when it's a lot of code, it's faster to type. When it's just a little bit of code, it's easier to use Blueprint because it has a lot of stuff just pre-set up. I worry about using Unreal Engine tool wrong sometimes. I think that's the reason why I'm not efficient at learning. Yeah, I mean, I get that. But that also does, again, come back to the same thing, is if you're using something in a certain way and it produces the end result that you want in a consistent way, of course. If it's very buggy, that's probably not what you want to do. But if the thing you're using produces the result you want in a consistent and enjoyable way, that's good. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. Might have not been intended to be used that way, but that's not really a problem if it works. That said, all that, it is good to understand how things are supposed to be used. Anyway, have you tried state trees? Not yet. As I was working on this AI, I was like, it feels like this should have been a state machine and not a behavior tree, as you can clearly see here, because I've got like, I've got the states for the different phases, and then within those phases, I've got a combat and a passive state. This feels like it should have been a state machine. But to my knowledge, Unreal, at least at the time, Unreal doesn't really have good support for state machines to run AI. Like, it has state machines in the form of like animation blueprint, right? You can make state machines for this. You can tie code to that, but that's a little iffy and bothersome, and I don't like doing it. But then I found out that it does have like a state tree system, which I have to look into, because that feels like literally what I need right here, is just like a state machine in like a tree type structure. It's called a state tree for a reason, so I assume that's what it is. I haven't looked into it yet. It seems like I should have before diving into this. At this point, this boss fight works well enough that I'm not going to be changing things around. But it's definitely something that I want to look into, yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling on quite a lot, aren't I? I'm having a lot of fun just hanging out and talking, even though I don't really have all that much left to do, because again, there's going to be a lot of tweaking. At this point, I feel like I should just have a couple of people playtest this fight and see how badly they get their ass kicked, and fight it myself when I'm a little bit more focused as well. It's probably not a bad idea, but I'm probably, maybe not tonight after I end the stream, but maybe tomorrow if I don't forget. I'll package this and upload the new patch to the itch.io link. So anybody, there's a link down below in the description if anybody's interested, to a Google Doc with a link in it and some instructions for, hey, if you're going to test, please also fill out like this form at the end of it. So you can play everything I have up until now through that Google Doc. again, I'm probably not going to update it right away after I end the stream here. Maybe I will. Depends on how long I keep going. But if anybody wants to try out what we have changed and made today, that should be up on the HIO link in that Google Doc in like 24 hours. Let's say 24 hours from now. So yeah. Yeah, I should try the boss. Let's just try the boss fight, and I'm going to just not look at the chat for a moment. So I'm going to be very antisocial. But now I've had a little bit of time away from him, so I can. That feels like he shouldn't have been able to do that. It also doesn't help that I'm on mouse and keyboard, most likely. A teleport attack is still a bitch to deal with. Hold on, can I avoid the teleport attack by just standing here? I don't know. We'll never know. Okay. Honestly, the field of view matters a lot here, and I'm playing on a weird aspect ratio, so I should probably also, when I test this, test it in full screen. Because, yeah, specifically for... There we go. Specifically for that teleport attack, it's very important that you can actually see those particles that telegraph the fact that he's about to teleport in. And I don't know if it's a field of view issue or like an aspect ratio issue that I can't see those. If it's a field of view issue, that is kind of problematic because I don't really want to make the field of view much smaller than it is right now. That probably means that I just need to, well, to be fair, the particle systems that I'm using right now, very placeholder. So they probably just need to be bigger and a little bit more obvious when he teleports around. Yeah, with a wider aspect ratio, it is a little easier to see. So that's a good thing. Still, definitely needs a more impressive particle system as well. Which will also generally just be easier to spot. Man, I had the timing down for these things. Which is exactly why I randomized the timing, right? Because that's not something that we necessarily wanted. Being able to get too used to the timing of those attacks. Okay, turning around, not a good idea. Just when you see those, dash through. One other thing that's throwing me off, I think, is the fact that I am... like, my muscle memory has such a... okay, now you need to dash. Burnt in after like 100 attempts of this guy. That is actually throwing me right now. which is interesting because I don't know how that will impact new players. That means that a new fresh player will probably be an advantage in this boss fight right now to me. But I do think that we also just need to update that particle system to make it a little bit more obvious. All that said though, I've been live for 2.5 hours and my caffeine is running out. I can tell. I took a Red Bull before, not sponsored, sadly, because otherwise I'd be fucking rich. Before the stream, I can definitely tell that like the caffeine for it is running out because my brain is losing focus and my body is feeling like very tired. So I'm going to end it here for right now. It's been a very nice one. I honestly like had a lot of fun today. Like sometimes I end the stream and I'm like, oh, finally, fucking hell, I'm like gonna have some food and go to bed. Today I'm energized by it. So thanks everybody for stopping by. And I'll be live again on Monday with not this boss fight, fucking hopefully, finally. He's done. Like there's balancing needed, but I don't think there's any more coding needed for him. Maybe. If you've done it 100 plus times, if this is the first time the boss, maybe lower health increments of like 10 until it feels good. I don't think it's the health. I think the health is actually... I did increase the health. But I feel like the amount of damage I'm doing to him with the health he has, I feel like his stats are pretty well balanced now. He still deals quite a bit of damage, but he's a boss fight, so he should. Even when going very aggressive on him, it's very hard to skip an entire phase by just hitting him without dying, which is good. I think it's mostly that teleport attack needing to be more dodgeable that is going to throw me. Because if you can't get used to the timing, there needs to be a more obvious telegraph. And I don't think the telegraph for him with the particles I have right now is obvious enough. But just making those particles more elaborate and maybe giving the player a split second longer to react to it probably will do the trick fine. So yeah, maybe have the particle happen 0.25 seconds before teleporting. It does already right now, but it probably just needs a little bit longer. If I go into the teleport attack, when the player actually, when it actually teleports to the player, what it does is it spawns in the appearing particles. That's those pink like rose petal type things. Then it waits a quarter of a second. Then it spawns in the like little distortion of him appearing in. Then it waits another 0.1 seconds until that thing is at its largest. And only then does it spawn in. So it's already like 0.35 seconds between the first telegraph and him actually appearing and doing his thing. So maybe that just needs to be a little bit longer as well. So making this like 0.4 or something. This one is pretty important that it matches the timing, because this is actually just like the timing here is just hard coded for what the particle system does. But this one can do a little bit more, I think. Maybe we'll have to check. But again, those appear particles are going to need to be changed anyway. So that's been it. I'll see you next time.